Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here. Hope everyone's enjoying your weekend out there. We're going to be talking about the polar vortex returning with a lot of snow and including some southern snow. So let's take a look at the overall 500 millibar height anomalies this morning. You can actually see these series of troughs we've been dealing with pummeling the west coast, but there is light at the end of the tunnel with this ridging that's forming back behind it. That will be shutting off the taps there in California, while much of the southeast down in Florida, they're experiencing some colder conditions this morning, but it's nothing but cold across the middle of the country as that southwest wind's really cranking with well above average temperature anomalies. But where it's not above average is well up there in Siberia. In fact, it is extremely cold this morning. We're talking 62 below 0 Celsius. That is 80 below Fahrenheit, guys. And that cold is slowly going to be shifting southbound over the next week or two, bringing much colder conditions for the lower 48. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns on North America, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel. It's also important to hit the like button as well. It definitely helps out more than you know. So we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different. On Monday, we're going to be giving away one of these free weather stations, this Weatherflow Tempest weather station. This is the station that I actually have personally myself, and I love it. It only takes like 10 minutes to install, but if you would actually like to purchase one of these for a discount, I'll put the description in below as well as the link. So you have that available to purchase, but check back tomorrow on Monday. We're actually going to be giving one of these weather stations away out for free. So let's take a look at the overall setup on the hazard outlook this morning. We're still dealing with those heavier rains in California. We've got flood watches still posted along the coast there, but it's just snowing big time still in the Sierras. But now some of that cold air has shifted in portions of Arizona into Utah. Flagstaff's going to be getting cranked with heavy snow for them. They are under that winter storm warning for them. High wind warnings across portions of New Mexico and even Texas with some higher wind gusts. But there's the freezing temperatures down there in Florida, and they're actually going to be picking up some snow up there in Maine, even some heavier snow. So let's take a look at some of those temperatures where that cold air is, and that's trapped underneath that trough. So yeah, even in the panhandle of Florida, that's upper 20, folks. That's some cold stuff, definitely for them. Even in the southeast, experiencing those freezing conditions. But much of the country is not really seeing that Arctic air just yet. But you will be looking at that, over time as we get deeper into January. So these are things we're going to be talking about on this update. But for today, going into tomorrow, there's the setup. We've got the flood watches still in place. We've got one more day. We have the last hurrah, if you will, down there in California, as you're going to be hit with that last atmospheric river setup across the board. So from Northern California to Southern California, expect more heavy rains, but then the snows should be flying in portions of Nevada, getting into portions of Flagstaff there with very heavy snowfall, and even down in there in Phoenix, you could be picking up some healthy totals. There is going to be that trough that's going to be setting up across the Northeast. And we're going to be looking at places like Providence that could pick up an inch of snow. Even Boston, I know it's been in a snow drought for you guys, could pick up another like an inch or two of snow out of this deal, but heavier amounts as you extend into Maine. Then that's why they've got those winter storm warnings in place for them. But in fact, let's look at some of these rainfall totals between now and Tuesday down here in the desert Southwest. We're even talking about a ½ inch of rainfall, even in Las Vegas, places into Yuma where they hardly ever get precipitation. They're actually going to be seeing a little bit as well, but definitely some healthier amounts as you head towards Phoenix. Over an inch of rainfall up here into Prescott. We're talking snow, and look at that, 3 inches of liquid precipitation up there in Flagstaff. And what does that equate to snow? I mean, it's going to be cranking between now and Tuesday up there in Flagstaff. We could be looking at it upwards to 2, possibly 3 feet of snow for them. 17 inches in Prescott. Yeah, definitely some healthy totals underneath that trough as that snow line digs a little bit further south and some of these southern areas getting into the action with the snowfall. But look at the vorticity as it sets up shop on Wednesday. So this is the culprit as this really digs down. It drags some of that colder air from Canada, and then it's going to dump it in the form of snow there in Arizona and to New Mexico. But it's really going to be starting to wind up there in Kansas and Colorado. Denver's going to be getting into the action. I think they get almost a foot of snow for them. Portions of Kansas could pick up a foot of snow. But to the southeast of there, that's the warm sector. That's the southwest wind. So out ahead of it, you're going to be plenty warm before these kick off. But Wednesday morning, we could be looking at some showers and thunderstorms in and around the Oklahoma City area, in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But further eastbound, that's where you have to be concerned with a lot more lift associated with it for those severe storms, unfortunately, again, heading into Wednesday. And I think that even intensifies greater as we head into Thursday. So there's your Wednesday setup. Day 4 setup. This is, we've seen this the 3rd week in a row, guys. I mean, this is the same exact area down here in portions of East Texas, getting into Louisiana, heading into Mississippi. You're under the gun to seeing all 3 modes of severe weather. Further north, you're going to be looking at very heavy rainfall, 2 to 4 inches at least, out of these training cells are going to be taking place within that warm sector. But the cold side, to the northwest side of that upper level low pressure center that dives down to about a 990 millibar low pressure, the snow is going to be cranking. So really into the Sierras, down here and all the way down to Flagstaff, Salt Lake City, and then eventually get into the western slopes. They'll share that on the eastern side of Colorado. I think Denver gets up 8 to 12 inches is probably not out of the question, but it really sets up over Kansas. There's a good 6 to 8 to 12 inch swath setting up over Kansas, getting up through portions of Nebraska there, heading through Iowa, and even portions of Chicago, which really technically hasn't seen that much snow so far. Could be picking up 3 to 4 inches out of this deal, and that'll swing through portions of Wisconsin there, heading into Michigan. But there is going to be a little system. We're just going to be cold, at least cold air. They're going to be adding to those totals on top of what they see today and tomorrow, and you going into your Friday time frame combined over those amounts. Yeah, we could be looking at some healthier totals combined up there in Massachusetts, getting into Vermont, New Hampshire, and upstate Maine there. But look at the precipitation. So we are going to be experiencing that last trough coming in off the west coast. So they still got probably another inch or 2 of rainfall over the next couple of days. So this is the rainfall between now and Friday, and there's the setup over the southwest of the heavier rains, and the snow is going to be flying on the higher elevations. It's still dry where it has been dry for a long time up there in portions of Texas and Oklahoma, but we are going to get that little bit of a system on Wednesday. Could pick up some couple hundredths, tenths of rain, but it really sets up east, right? So that's the heavier totals, and where they do have that slight risk for excessive rainfall in the portions of Mississippi and to Alabama, but especially in the Tennessee Valley, heading into Kentucky, they could be clocked with 4 to 6 inches of rainfall. It's probably not out of the question between now heading into Friday. And then further north, it's all about the snow. But there's the setup for Thursday. So I think it's a Wednesday, Thursday deal again. This is the 3rd week in a row. We've had these same areas get hit hard. You're still in the warm sector. Unfortunately, we could be looking at more tornadoes down here in this sector. So definitely concerned on Wednesday, and this shifts into Wednesday night, heading into Thursday across the southeast, getting back into Mississippi, into Alabama again, back into Georgia, unfortunately, heading into Tennessee, back into Kentucky again. That's the same areas that got hit hard last week. Could be looking at another potential setup. Hopefully it's not as bad as the one we saw, but definitely concerned about these same areas getting hit hard, especially 3 weeks in a row. But underneath that, that's a significant change. So we watch these troughs, these come in coming in out west. There's the ridge really starting to build in. So that's going to trap this trough a little bit further off, and it's going to be slowly pushing the colder air from west to east as we get deeper into into the week, especially as we head into next week. That's going to drag down the colder air and actually going to be increasing the lift in that area. That's going to bring the snow line down. So not only New Mexico is going to get more in the action of the snowfall, but now we're talking places further south into the Texas Panhandle, and even Oklahoma. We could be looking at some snowfall heading into this weekend. But further south, it's all about a kind of a chillier rain with below average temperatures and much of Texas there, with the chilly rain falling and then moving into, going into Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama again, heading into for the weekend. But there's the colder air entering as we head into this weekend coming up, with the 850s bringing in that colder air. And again, it's moving a little bit further from west to east as we get deeper into this weekend. And I think it really intensifies as we get into even the week beyond that. So look at the culprit. Here's the SOI Index. This is your Southern Oscillation Index. We've been dealing with this La Nina, which seems like forever, which it has been, 2020. But the significance is it's been rapidly increasing over the last 30 days. In fact, it was a 20 on the 30-day moving average. That really shut off the taps, and that's why it's been so bone dry in a good chunk of Oklahoma and Texas and parts of eastern New Mexico. But the difference is we've seen a noticeable drop as of late, down to a -14 on the daily moving average. We're watching the slow transition, and I think the culprit was all the rainfall there in California. We're going to be slowly transitioning out of that La Nina and heading back towards what they call an enso neutral pattern. So if you can actually see that on layman's terms, this is your 30-day precipitation anomalies, right? This is what fell. Nothing. The Southern Oscillation that was dry as a bone. That's why it's been dry as a bone up in these regions. You haven't seen anything. In fact, it's been 33 days in Dallas. You hadn't seen a drop of rainfall. But it's been nothing but that down there up in California, right? I mean, look at that, 62 inches in the Sierras. They basically had a Hurricane Harvey hit the Sierras over the last 30 days with 62 inches of precipitation. That's an absurd amount. So it's been very good for all the reservoirs. I mean, Lake Oroville went up 100 feet. Crazy stuff. But now that's going to be starting to dry out, right? And so here's that 30-day precipitation that really set up shop once it tapped into the Gulf. But the difference is this time, now that SOI dropped, we're going to be getting the southern jet stream more back into the picture. So if you remember back when the atmospheric river was happening, with this jet stream really lined up from San Francisco all the way back to China, 6,500 miles, and we had these troughs coming off the Aleutian Islands pummeling the west coast. Now that's not happening, right? That polar jet has lifted further north. With the drop in the SOI Index, there's your southern jet stream, folks, well to the south. What's going to happen is, as these troughs come in underneath, that's going to trap the cold air underneath and cause these overrunning setups across portions of the deep south. So as we head towards the 24th to the 25th of the month, you can actually see that with the trough coming down, it traps the cold air underneath. It takes advantage of that southern jet stream, that Southern Oscillation Index drop, and that is going to increase the lift aloft. And what's under the door? Look at that, what happens at the surface. We could be talking about some southern snow down there in Texas, portions of maybe Dallas by then, portions of the Oklahoma City area. Look where the 540 line is, folks. That's pretty far south, all the way to Mexico, right? So that's a culprit. It's a step down process, but it's going to be bringing that colder air. And as we get deeper into this weekend, you'll see the first transition of that. But then as we go into the following week, by the time we get into the 24th, 25th of the month, we could be looking at some southern snow for places of the deep south, and that could extend into East Texas, we're not talking severe weather anymore. We're talking snowfall, right? Look at the low pressure. Look where it's at further south, right? That's complements of that southern jet stream, right? That hugs the coast. So it's not just a Texas thing, y'all. It's more of a southeast thing, and then that's going to swing up the East Coast. So places that's been, bone dry in the snowfall, we could be looking at the culprit of the come with that drop, and that typically indicates more of a southern track heading up the southeast and through the East Coast. So we could be looking at some healthy totals by then from this particular setup as this low pressure center really sets up shop off the East Coast, and that could end the snow drought in a big way for much of the Northeast. And look at the temperatures, underneath that. So it's going to be plenty cold as that cold air continues to drain a little bit, over time, a step down process. There's your temperatures by the 26th, and plenty cold as that trough comes in underneath. And look at the snow depth. So it could be looking at some, decent totals even further south. This is actual snowfall on the ground laying across portions of the Texas Panhandle. Could have a swath that came through North Texas into Oklahoma, could be having a swath through Louisiana, even into Arkansas. This is just snowfall on the ground. Not to say that it can't even snow even places further south. It just might not stick, right? But some decent and healthy totals might be on the way for the Northeast as we get deeper into the end of January. So, hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. I update these on platforms as well. And catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.